Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tim's Take Reviews. I am Tim, and this is my review channel where I give my take on movies. And today we are talking about The Adjustment Bureau. So Matt Damon plays David Norris, who is a New York senatorial candidate. And after losing his election, he runs into a woman named Elise, played by Emily Blunt. And he feels like there's really strong connection with her that he's just never had with anybody else. He kind of almost like he'd been friends with her for a long time, even though this is the first time they'd met. But there's this mysterious group called the Adjustment Bureau that doesn't want them to spend any time together. He's trying to continually figure out how he can get to her and spend more time with her and really figure out if it's a relationship that he can make last, but the Adjustment Bureau does not want him to be a part of it. And we learn through a movie, pretty early on actually, it's when he actually figures out that they exist, that they're in control of more than you would expect. That there's not really so much thing as free will. There's kind of this plan, and they have everything planned out, specifically wanting things to go a certain way according to the plan. And the plan requires that they meet this one time, but they should never see each other again. But he wants to continue to see her because of this strong connection he felt. He feels like that can't be wrong. I actually really enjoyed the opening scene where you can kind of see what's going on during his campaign up to the election, but it does it in a way so it doesn't just drag out forever, because who wants to start it out with a boring political thing when you thought you were getting an action movie? But I thought they did a really good job of cutting it down and keeping the editing and the pace up, so it was actually really interesting, which I didn't expect at all. I didn't expect an interesting political twist to it. So I was really happy with how they did that, and they got to the point without taking too long, but you got enough backstory so you knew what was going on. And that leads to the next scene. After he loses the election, he goes into the bathroom kind of just to wash his face, and as they do in movies. Do people do that? But he runs into Emily Blunt, who is in the men's room, and they kind of joke about that, and she's hiding from somebody because of something she did. I don't recall what it was, but it doesn't even matter. The chemistry between the two of them is great. I laughed so many times in the scenes where the two of them were together. And I felt like this first scene, you really had to get that. You had to feel like there was this really, really strong connection. And you had to laugh. You had to think it was just really funny. Maybe you're not rolling on the floor, but, plenty of chuckling. Because later on in the movie, they really set it up that they are basically soulmates. And you have to be able to feel this in one scene, essentially. And I actually felt like it came across really well. At the end of the scene ends with them kissing, which I thought was a bit strange. They only just met. They've talked to each other for 3 minutes, and they're already kissing. But it is plausible enough, and then with what they explain later on, it actually kind of makes sense, so I can kind of let that one go. So this interaction between him and her kind of leads to him having a speech, because every time you lose an election, you always come out and have a speech, and he had a really, really interesting speech going away from the norms that you would have in this situation, where it's very political and whatnot, and he's just kind of the everyman. He's talking about, we spent $10,000 doing studies to see what the right amount of scuffing on the shoes should be so that we can get the kind of the middle class vote, but also still be polished enough to get the businessman vote. And he's just talking about how ridiculous politics is when it comes to that kind of thing. And it was a really good speech, and it was really interesting, and it kind of had to for the movie to work. The way they explain things later. I don't want to talk too much about why things happen, because even if you may still want to go see it, and we'll get to whether or not you should later. But I felt like the scene kind of had to work similarly to the first one, the last scene before this, and it worked really well. So after this, he has to go get a normal job. He has to go get a real job, as he calls it. So he's working for, I believe it's the guy he's kind of a friend of his who was also helping to fund his campaign. And he's working for this guy, and he's pretty high level businessman. He's kind of up there in the company. and he has like a plan that he wants to do for the company. The other guy's not really into it, but he says they'll talk about it more when they get there. And this kind of leads to the reveal of the Adjustment Bureau. And the Adjustment Bureau, they, like I said before, they kind of tweak things because they have their certain way that they want to go. They have to try to get everybody's storylines to go a specific way according to the plan. So there's going to be some instances where the person was going to do one thing, like this for this guy, for example, was going to reject David Norris' plan for whatever he was pitching for the business meeting. But the Adjustment Bureau adjusts his opinion so that he's going to accept whatever Norris was going to talk about in the meeting. But there was a mistake made by one of the agents, or whatever they're called, who was supposed to slow Norris down so he doesn't get to the meeting on time. And they kind of go in and do their adjusting. And this kind of leaves open a chance for Norris to be able to see them do what they do, which no one is supposed to see. So this leads to kind of the action part of it. And I actually thought this reveal was really cool. It wasn't like a huge moment. They actually show it in the trailer. But I felt like it actually did have a really good effect for not really knowing what was going to happen, because I try to avoid trailers as much as I can. I figured out later that it was in the trailer. But I actually thought it was it was kind of a cool reveal. It didn't sit too much on exactly what he was seeing. I thought it was really well timed and presented. I really enjoyed what they did with it. So then that kind of leads to our first sort of action scene where they're chasing him down because he's found something that he's not supposed to, and they kind of get a hold of him and have a talk with him, and they kind of explain to him what it is that they do and the fact that he is not allowed to see her again, which of course he doesn't care. He's going to try to find her, and that's most of the movie. Is he's trying to figure out how he can get back to her while trying to juggle his own wants and needs compared to what they are threatening to do if he goes against them. So we actually get to see quite a bit of behind the scenes stuff with the Adjustment Bureau, and I think that was really cool to be able to see what's going on with the Bureau as a whole and of each individual characters. So you actually have some decent supporting characters instead of just these random people that are chasing after our main character. And you see some progression through some of them, which is really nice. Michael Kelly, Terrence Stamp, John Slattery, they were all pretty good in what they did. There was a little bit of a conversation between John Slattery and Anthony Mackie's character. Anthony Mackie was the one who made the mistake that allowed everything to happen. And I really liked being able to see them interact and grow as characters. And I thought everybody did their part really well, except for Anthony Mackie. I really like Anthony Mackie. He's super cool as Falcon in the Marvel movies. I've only seen him in a couple other things. I think he's pretty much good in everything. But I didn't love him in this, and I don't think it's his fault. I think it's got more to do with the fact that they just didn't give his character very much, other than he's tired a lot, and that's it. He's tired a lot, and he works for these people and does the stuff that they do. There really isn't much character given to him, and there's a specific scene where I really wish they had given him a lot of reason for what he does, but they don't. I was specifically looking to see if there was any kind of just facial expression that he would give, because sometimes you can say a lot with a face in 2 seconds. You can give a whole long backstory just with that, and I was specifically looking for that, trying to see if I could get that from it, and it just wasn't there. I don't know if that's the fault of the actor or the direction or the writing. Something should have been given to give him more character, so he has reason to be doing what he's doing. And in the end, I just didn't feel like it was there, and I didn't feel much for the character. He was just kind of bland. Other performances that I haven't mentioned, I did briefly touch on Matt Damon and Emily Blunt's characters. I really liked Emily Blunt. I haven't seen anything that I didn't like Emily Blunt in. She's great, and I like how she can kind of move to two very different characters. Like her character in Edge of Tomorrow is like a very, very strong character, where this one she's just like I mean, she's absolutely still a strong character, but in a very different way. She's very funny in this one, and she's got a great interaction with Matt Damon pretty much throughout everything they're both in, and it's really fun to watch them. And the chemistry between both of them is great. Matt Damon on his own, he's Matt Damon. Matt Damon's cool. I've never seen anything I didn't like him in, but really in the end, as far as him on his own, he's just fine. There's a lot of people I think that could have played that character though. But one thing that definitely does save it is him and Emily Blunt together is really fun to watch. So the Bureau has a few things that they use that kind of allows them to do their job. A couple of these things include this book that they have that basically outlines the plan and how it relates to the people that they're following. And in the book, you can kind of see it track along the different paths that could happen because they can only do so much to alter the movements and how their choices change. For the most part, they have the book that shows the different ways that it could go, and there's certain moments that they can adjust, other ones they can't, that it just is left to whatever the person chooses, which causes some problems in the sense that, like, some of the rules don't make that much sense. First of all, this book doesn't make that much sense. It's initially, like, it's really cool at first, until you think about it and you're like, but why would they have this in book form? Why do they need it as a book? How does this work? How do you read this? And there's sometimes where one character is talking to another character, asking what this thing means, but the person asking about it is the one who's the higher level and should know how this works. It's kind of more of an exposition thing, but it's really dumb when something like that happens. If you're going to explain something, you got to explain it in a good way. Maybe you have the lower level guy ask the higher level guy. I don't know. But it's got to be better than that. And they have some other things going on, like their doors, the way that they travel from everything. And the thing that you mainly get from the trailer is that they have the ability to open a door and basically transport to somewhere very different in the city. And the doors only kind of make sense. I don't understand why one door goes to the other place. It seems very random. And even in the movie, the characters kind of say that it's really hard to navigate because of the middle of New York is tough. But I don't understand how they decided one place goes to which place, and I don't know, it's really confusing and weird. At times it starts kind of looking at things as if there's something on another level. It almost made me think that they were kind of referencing God if God wasn't God, but was actually this group of the Adjustment Bureau. And maybe the head of the Bureau is God. It was strange. Maybe that's not what they were going for, but it kind of seemed like it was. I didn't have too much of a problem with that. Movie be movie. It'll, sure, it makes sense in the context of the movie, I guess. But not all of it made that much sense as far as how everybody works, as far as who has what job type, what makes one person different from another as far as rank goes. And there was just some other things that the plan itself doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But almost all of it is kind of just, it doesn't make perfect sense, but it's probably not going to. And it doesn't really have to, just as long as you get what you need to get to understand what's happening with our characters. And that's kind of the way a lot of things were, because the plan itself you don't really know what the plan is. Where is the plan going to? What is the plan? What's the point behind it? In the end, it doesn't matter, because you could be told what the plan is for the universe, I guess, in the sense of the movie. But what you really need to know is how that relates to our characters and what that means for them and the struggle for them to stay together and why they can't, according to the Bureau. And I think that works just fine. You can kind of ignore the fact that there's things that you don't understand. And really most of the rules that the movie sets up for itself, it does follow. It doesn't break its own rules as far as I can tell, which is always good to see. And the movie really does operate within its own rules. It sets things up saying that this can happen and this has to happen. And, for example, you have to be wearing a hat in order to get through one of the doors that they're using, because, of course, any normal human person is not supposed to be going through the doors. But the way that they justify the capability for that to happen and possibility for a human to go through the door is if they have the hat, because the hats are that special. But they stick with that, and there's even one scene where the hat from one guy falls off while he's trying to chase Matt Damon's character down, and his hat flies off, and he makes sure to go back and pick it up before going through the door again, because he wouldn't be able to open the door without the hat. So they really did keep continuity in that kind of sense, which was really nice to see. A lot of scenes in the movie were kind of cool. There was a lot of things that I thought were paced pretty well. Maybe it was a bit long overall. And the best scenes were when we had Elise and Norris together, and it was just entertaining to watch them have some dialogue back and forth. I thought it was actually put together pretty well. It wasn't like great, but it was fine. Didn't really have any problems with it. But that was kind of the movie as a whole, was that there wasn't anything wrong with it. It was fine. That's almost the only way I can explain this movie altogether. It's just fine. There's not really anything wrong with it. Check it out if you want. There's nothing really wrong with it. It's just fine is sort of how the whole movie is. As far as I can tell, everything stays together. The pacing's not bad. The direction seemed fine for the most part. The acting was actually really solid all the way around, except for Anthony Mackie. Sorry, Anthony Mackie. Nothing against you, because he's right there, obviously. In the end, the action is a bit weak, but I don't feel like it was meant to be about the action. It kind of seems like it's more about the relationship. And the relationship does come across really well, and it's really fun to watch them together. I laughed so many times during the movie when I didn't expect to. It actually is fairly engaging. It kept me in. I didn't get bored. It was a perfectly fine movie. I guess for the fact that this was a first-time director, this is his first feature film, it's really not a bad accomplishment at all. And it was kind of a higher concept, kind of a more difficult type of thing to go for. And I thought he did just fine. He also is the one who wrote the movie, so it kind of makes sense that he was able to work that out. But all in all, that's all I can say about it, really, is there's nothing wrong with it. It's just fine. If you're a big Matt Damon fan or an Emily Blunt fan, I would totally say go ahead and check it out. It's really fun to watch the two of them together. That's the main thing that makes it worth watching. It's a decent action type of thriller movie. Nothing wrong with it. Check it out if you want to. If you had any interest in it, go for it. But just kind of keep some average expectations. It's not going to break any records. It's not going to set a new trend or anything. It's just fine. It was perfectly enjoyable. Thank you for stopping by and hanging out with me for my review of The Adjustment Bureau. If you like it, please hit the like button. And if you want to see more things that I put up, hit the subscribe button. It really helps, and I appreciate it. If you have anything you want me to review, go ahead and leave a comment. I pretty much have everything kind of scheduled out that I want to do. There's a lot of new movies coming out that I want to check out. And similar to this, I want to check out some other movies that came out a while ago that are related to the new movies coming out. But let me know if there's anything you want me to review, and I will probably find a way to sneak it in. And let me know what you thought of everything. If you had any differing opinions on the movie, that's perfectly fine. I'm actually really interested to see what other people think about it after they see it, because movies should be about conversation, and I wanna discuss different opinions and see what other people think, because I know that my opinion is not the be-all end-all of everything. But with all that said, I want to thank you for hanging out with me for a little while, and I hope to see you back again soon talking movies.